Hello! We are going to do another bonus proof, which is very exciting. This is a nice short one. Vertical angles are congruent. So before we get started, I'm just going to draw some vertical angles. And I'm going to do this because it is much easier to do geometric proofs when you have a drawing. For one thing, your drawing counts as part of your proof. So you don't have to describe everything in your proof. You can just provide a drawing and say, look it, see? So that is what we're going to do. I'm going to label just 3 of the angles. I could label the 4th. Here, I'll make you feel better. I'll label the 4th. I don't have to label the 4th because I know that I'm only going to need 3 angles in order to do this proof. But let's pretend like I didn't know that. So I might as well put the 4th angle down there, even though I already know ahead of time that I'm not going to be using it. That's okay. You might not know that, so you might want that. All right, so now let's talk about what we are going to prove. We are going to prove that the vertical angles are congruent. So we're going to prove that you can pick either that 1 is congruent to 3, because those are vertical angles, or you could prove that 2 is congruent to 4. Those are also vertical angles. I don't care which one you're going to pick. I'm just going to pick that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. And the reason that I'm picking that is because then this will match what's in your book better, and I don't see any need to make you struggle to understand a proof when you're just learning how to do proofs. All right, so let's make our chart. We have a statement on this side, and we have some reasoning on this side. And we are going to start with the given. How did I know that we were going to start with the given? We always start with the given. All right, so what is given? Well, very little is given. We have the fact that there are vertical angles. So I'm going to say that angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles. Notice that even though I'm not writing this out, like if you have vertical angles, then the vertical angles are congruent. I could write my statement out that way, but I didn't. But still, this is your hypothesis part. You have the vertical angles. That's your given. Okay, so now you'll notice that we have very little to work with here. If you look in your notes under vertical angles, you don't get much love. You find out that vertical angles are made from intersecting lines that are not linear pairs. And that's it. Well, since this is beginning geometry and you don't know much yet, we're going to assume that somehow the linear pair stuff is going to help us. So let's write what we know about linear pairs. We know that angle 1 and angle 2 are linear pairs. Again, you might not be sure how this are a linear pair. You might not be sure how this is going to help, but you do know that that's true. If you look at angle 1 and you look at angle 2, then you can see that they are linear pairs. You can also say that angle 2 and angle 3 are a linear pair, right? Because we could do that. I'm going to ignore number 4. But if you wanted to, you could throw information in there about number 4 too, if your heart's desired. I'm just going to leave it out because we don't need it in there. And I know that we don't. How do I know that 1 and 2 are a linear pair? That's because I can look at the definition of a linear pair. Right? I can look at the definition of a linear pair and know that angle 1 and angle 2 are it. Okay, so now I know that angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair, and angle 2 and angle 3 are linear pairs. So what does that mean? What can I say about linear pairs? Again, you don't have very much to work with here. So if you're flipping through your notes, you should just flip until you see something about linear pairs and then see if that can help you at all. I think that it does help you because you can say that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. And you can also say that angle 2 and angle 3 are supplementary. Now, you might be asking yourself, how do I know that they are supplementary? Well, you have a postulate that says that. And I don't remember what number the postulate is, but it says if two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. Okay, all right. Number 4. What does it mean when angles are supplementary? Well, it means that the measure of angle 1 plus, you still see me down here? Yeah. Plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180 degrees. And it also means that the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180 degrees. And the reason I know that is because of the definition of supplementary. Right? That's what it means to be supplementary, because you take them and you add them together and you get 180 degrees. So that is very convenient for us. Okay, so now I want you to look. We say here that angle 1 and angle 2, measure of angle 1 and measure of angle 2 equals 180 degrees. And the measure of angle 2 and the measure of angle 3 are 180 degrees. So, look at this. I have angle 2 in both of those equations, don't I? I do. And this equals over here, doesn't it? That means that these two things, measure of angle 1, must be equal to the measure of angle 3. If these two things are equal and this is equal, then these two have to be equal, right? If this is something plus 100 equals 180, and this is 100 plus something equals 180, then we know that they're both going to equal the same thing. They're both going to equal 80. I don't know whether or not my angle is 80, but the point is that I know that measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 3. And that makes me happy to know that, because then I get to write that down. Measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 3. How did we figure that out? We did some algebra. That's what we did. We did some algebra. We remembered that if these two are equal and these two are equal, then these must be equal. Okay, so look how close we are, folks. We're proving that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, and here we have that the measurement of angle 1 equals the measurement of angle 3. I'm able to jump right to congruence. And why? Because the definition of congruent angles tells me that that means that the measurements are equal. So that is how you prove that vertical angles are congruent.